Well, welcome from Cyber UK. I'm joined by Irfan from the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology to discuss market incentives. Well, welcome, Irfan.
Thanks, Ollie.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I think, in the context of market incentives, I think one of the things that we've heard is that the private sector believe that the free market is capable of ensuring that bad software doesn't have a market. So I think, as we think about market incentives, where do you think, where is your thinking on this at the moment, and how do we think about that?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit of we've had a bit of a journey on this, right? And I think you've been involved from the outside and now from part of government, but the market's clearly not doing what it needs to for cybersecurity, right? I think that's I think saying that the market won't deliver it, I think is probably a little bit academic, because it may do in the long run,
Right.
but I don't know how long the long run is, and I don't know how long we have. Right now, the market is not delivering what we need, not for technology products, not for cyber resilience in organisations.
Yeah.
But if we look at things like the Cyber Security Breaches Survey, which
Yes.
the UK official statistic on this, we've got 70% of companies that think cyber security is an important, or consider it an important risk for their boards.
Yeah.
We've got 60% of companies don't have MFA,
Yes.
and we have 80% of companies that are not doing vulnerability assessments.
Yes.
And then if we look at the market for things like software services and software vendors and technology products, nowhere near enough of those companies are meeting minimum baseline requirements that have been set by the industry, set by the market.
Right.
So it may happen in the long run, but it's not happening now, and we are so dependent on this stuff. This is, we want technology to be out there. We want people to adopt this stuff. We don't want to create too much of a burden, but at the same time, lives and societies and communities now depend on this technology to the point where we cannot wait for the market itself to sort itself out in 10, 20, 30 years' time.
Yes.
There are things happening now that we need to secure.
And I think that's really interesting, and I think it's a view that we share at the National Cybersecurity Centre, is that to get the pace and the scale of change necessary to if we expect it to happen organically, it's going to take a long time, as you allude to. And I think what we're seeing is vendors still shipping products with unforgivable vulnerabilities, and so I guess kind of when we think about that, how do you think that now we've defined a way of at least defining what an unforgivable vulnerability is? Do you think that has a role to play in trying to create a market incentive?
It should do, right? I think the framework that we've got is where we have threat to life from some of from cyber security risks, where we have threat to life, where the country as a whole is going to lose, have massive economic losses, where lights go out, where water goes out, that kind of thing. We will, we have a law, and we will have kind of more useful laws, and ones that cover the modern age rather than what we thought technology was going to do 10 years ago. And everything after that, we need to be incredibly careful not to kind of distort the market too much, such that technology stops being something that we want to use. But I think this all revolves around trust, right? So we now inherently trust technology. If it's on the shelves, if you can download it, if it's available, you just trust it. You think
Yes.
it's okay. But they have these unforgivable vulnerabilities. We're talking vulnerabilities that we knew about 10, 12, 15 years ago.
Yes.
And so it should absolutely form a part of how we look at. I don't know how it forms a part of regulation, but certainly there should be an incentive there to say, actually, if this company has not addressed this vulnerability after 15 years, and we know that from that you can have devastating cyber attacks, we know that it actually becomes really easy for anyone to come into your organisation.
Yes.
That trust that breaks that trust relationship. But I don't think we yet have a way to translate that breach of trust to the bottom line for a company.
That's fair. And we heard yesterday a very strong call actually from the panel around that actually transparency is one of the tools here which they believe could be most consequential. And there was actually an ask on the NCSC, and I guess with yourselves kind of as our policy partner in this, to define a standard for what good transparency in technology looks like. What's your views on this?
So I think transparency is going to be really important for how companies build their technology. I think right now, a company will, when you're designing technology and I've never designed a bit of technology, right? That's not been what I've done. I've looked under the hood and I've tested out technology, but you no longer write code from scratch, right? You go and you take code from existing software and you build on what's already been done, and you now have this pyramid of kind of what's in there. So transparency is going to be really important in fishing out things like these unforgivable vulnerabilities, but also being able to trace back when you have an issue. Is that something that's going to affect us? I don't know that has a link to the end user.
Interesting.
I think that link is then to make other company to give tools to other companies.
Yes.
But there's still not that incentive for the designer of a bit of kit.
Yes.
To want to go and dig into whatever is released as part of this transparency stuff. To say, it's now I have an incentive or I have a pressing need to know what's under the hood. We haven't got that first bit yet. I think when we do, that second bit on transparency is going to be incredibly important.
Yeah. And obviously, the reason we've converged on this market incentives is, we've been doing a lot of work around secure foundations now for a long time, and we know how to build secure technology. DSIT's been supporting Cherry, as a key mitigation to memory safety, but we haven't seen kind of the adoption in the way that we expect, although the value is really clear.
Yeah.
And do you see that, do you see that market incentives are a way to unblock some of that latent value?
Yeah, they're the only way, I think. I do want to touch on, I'm incredibly proud of what our organisations have done together and what others have done to set those secure foundations, right? I think 5 years ago, when we talked about uptake of cybersecurity practices and we said we need secure by design, we legitimately got concerns from industry to say, we don't know what that is. You have these expectations, we don't know what good looks like. If I've stood up in front of crowds today and yesterday and talked about expectations of this, I don't think it's legitimate for companies to come back and say, we don't know what good looks like now. And that is 5 years or 10 years of really hard work to say, this is the baseline. We have that now. The other side of this is the most established UK scheme of certification is Cyber Essentials.
Right.
I think about 20% of companies know what Cyber Essentials is.
Yes.
So with our, flagship scheme, no, not enough people know. We've got the foundations there. I think the people that want to know can go and find it. We have to do much more to go out and correct that. Now, market incentives is going to be a way of forcing companies to look at this stuff. There's also, from an economic problem, there's information asymmetry, right? There's not the incentive to go and understand what's happening on the other side of the technology market. So I think there's more that we can do to get the message out.
Yes.
So that when those market incentives are in place,
Yes.
it's not a shock. Right. It's I need to go and do that. Actually, I know where it is, and I know where on the NCSC website is, and then the other thing I think we need to do is we need to demystify what's out there.
Right.
So all the advice and guidance I think you need as a company is on the NCSC website. Yep. There's a bit of stuff on the Home Office website. Yeah. There's some stuff on the DSIT website. There's other industry best practices, and I think we have a responsibility to tell that what's that user journey, right? If I'm a company, if I'm a CTO in a company, or I am a cybersecurity analyst in a company, where do I need to go, and what information do I need, and so I think we've got a job to do in building that path, and then I think we've got the job to do in driving the behaviours, and there's a whole load of things that we can do, right? So driving uptake through supply chains.
Yes.
We heard BAE Systems yesterday very clearly say on stage, we are a big company, we have thousands of suppliers, we are not tolerating supply chain risk. Right? We absolutely require all of our companies to go and get Cyber Essentials. And then the really useful bit was then, and we are following up on it because we mean it. That's not something that a CISO or even a CTO or whoever it is can say,
yes, unless
you have the entire organisation behind you. So making cyber an organisational issue rather than a tech issue is quite an important part of driving that market incentive as well.
Well, that's awesome. Is there any last points you think that you'd like the viewers to understand about market incentives?
Market incentives are coming to you.
I love that. Well, on that note, thank you very much. Thanks for having
me. It's lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to see you.